And what it's doing is it's building up twist.
The process of weaving starts with spinning prepared fiber. Scratch that, the process actually starts with carding, a task that uses boards to separate individual fibers to produce a continuous web suitable for spinning. This is where fiber artist Matilda Lind begins with 100-year-old cards that she obtained in Europe.
The last bit, I'm gonna scrape off one, scrape off the other.
Then she preps her spinning wheel and spins her way to a usable fiber for the next step, weaving on a floor loom. Her tools are traditional, one of her spinning wheels dating back to 1789, which speaks to the deep cultural significance of weaving in other cultures.
I really like the types of weaving that have deep cultural roots in everyday life. So, I think that textiles are really exciting as a craft material because of all the materials in your world, this is the one that you're most intimately familiar with. You spend every day wearing clothes. You spend every day enveloped in textiles. And at night, you're laying on textiles. When you sit on a couch, you're usually sitting on textiles. You're just constantly touching cloth. And when these things were all handmade still, that meant that you spent all day long in physical contact with handmade things.
Contrary to popular belief, weaving doesn't just happen here. It can be done with other tools, much smaller ones, which are perfect for beginners.
My smallest, simplest loom is this. It's just a little wooden heddle, and you run strings through it, tie them off to a point, and then you just have to hold them taut, and you can pass another string through and make a very simple band. My inspiration when I'm weaving, it really comes from traditional textiles. I do love some of the modern experimental ones, but really I just find traditional textiles to be an endless wealth of inspiration. I spent about 4 years in Northeastern Europe, in Estonia, and one of the things that I loved about being there was going through the museum textiles, and there was just an endless variety of color palettes and structures, and also like embellishments, like embroidered details and edge finishes and all these little bits and pieces that made their textiles so rich and so beautiful.
As with any artist beginning, and even with the quite seasoned, mistakes happen. The good news is, when they do, working with fibers makes undoing the mistake quite easy. The goal is to go places with your art that might scare you just a little bit.
Sometimes I do take risks when creating new pieces. I think that you just kind of have to. It's a really important part of any artist's process to fail sometimes, and you shouldn't be afraid of failure. One of the nice things about weaving also is you can really easily take apart your fabric and reuse all of that material. So there's no loss, even if you use like really expensive material, and a lot of it, you can undo it for the most part.
Matilda is passionate about her art and loves sharing her knowledge with others. As the Director of Programs and Research at Tawny, or Traditional Arts in upstate New York, she gets the opportunity quite often, not just with curious customers at Tawny, but with interested artists in local communities.
I think that weaving is a really important thing to show people, especially young people, but communities in general, because we've really lost the awareness of how fabric is made. And as I was saying before, we're draped in it every day. We wear fabric every day, and most people don't know how it works. So when you're out there in public as a weaver and you're showing, yes, I can make this fabric by hand and look at how fabulous it is, it puts people back in touch with something that is an essential part of our common human heritage. This is one of the most time-consuming things that we did as human beings for thousands of years, was producing the cloth that we needed for everyday life. And somehow, suddenly, we're all totally unfamiliar with it. So it's so important for us, especially with young people, to bring the weaving out into the public, show them how it works, and help them to kind of reclaim that part of what it is to be a human in the world.
If this deeply cultural craft interests you, here's what this artist says you should do to get started.
If you're an artist and you want to learn how to weave, Usually there is some sort of weaving group near you. I would start out by contacting them and see if you can have an opportunity to use a loom before you actually invest in one. After you've done that, then I would say start looking around on like used furniture listings. You'll find some looms out there, and they're really, really big, so most people end up selling them for not too much money. So you can find a really beautiful old loom that works really well for not too much of an investment, and that's how I would start out. You can get a folding loom if you don't have a lot of space, so that can fold up against a wall and be fairly easy to store, or you can get a table loom as well. So there are a lot of ways to get started, but I would say, first thing you want to do is reach out to your community.
In St. Lawrence County for WPBS Weekly, I'm Jolene DeRosier.